Welcome to the deep dive. Just a heads up before we begin, we really need to give a content advisory.
Yes.
The material we're discussing today is, well, it's graphic. It involves potentially very distressing testimony from the Diddy Combs trial, specifically Cassie Ventura's account.
It's difficult stuff, definitely.
Yeah.
But it feels important to understand the details that have surfaced.
Exactly. It's tough to hear, but, vital for grasping what's happening and what it might mean.
So today we're really focusing in on Cassie Ventura's recent testimony, specifically her descriptions of these events termed freak-offs.
Right.
Our goal is to kind of unpack these really disturbing allegations and explore the broader implications. We're drawing from an excerpt from Justice Uncovered.
Good source for this. They focus on legal developments and entertainment.
Right. So we want to distill the key parts of this, unsettling testimony and try to understand its significance in the whole case.
Okay, let's try and unpack this. To really get the weight of Cassie's testimony, maybe we should start with a little background.
Good idea.
Diddy Combs, most people know he's a massive figure in music. Decades as a rapper, producer, entrepreneur, just hugely influential.
Undeniably a powerhouse. And Cassie Ventura, or Cassie professionally, she broke out with Me and You back in 2006.
Big hit. Yeah, I remember that.
And then she began this very long, very public relationship with Combs. Started around 2007. Went on for over 10 years.
Saw them everywhere together. Lots of professional collaborations too, right?
Exactly. But while that relationship was very visible, these recent legal proceedings, they brought forward some incredibly serious allegations. Abuse, misconduct.
In Cassie's testimony this week, it feels like a really pivotal moment in the trial against Combs. He's facing serious charges, coercive behavior, abuse, that kind of thing.
Definitely pivotal. And what's really come into focus now, central to her testimony, is this term freak-offs.
Yeah, that term.
It surfaced in court. And it reportedly refers to these orchestrated encounters involving Combs, Cassie, other people, all allegedly directed by him.
That's a key part of her account we need to look at closely.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's where it gets extremely disturbing, and it really requires attention. Cassie took the stand on Tuesday. By all accounts, just harrowing testimony. She described these freak-offs as events Combs orchestrated. And she stressed, these were not consensual, not in any real way.
She testified they left her feeling powerless, degraded, deeply degraded.
And there's a specific, incredibly shocking detail involving urination.
Yes, this is very difficult. She stated that during these freak-offs, either Combs himself or sometimes a male escort.
Acting under his instructions.
Acting under Combs' direct instructions, yes, would urinate on her. That level of detail, it just paints such a stark, awful picture.
And it gets even worse. She talked about times when both Combs and the escort would allegedly do this at the same time.
Creating what she described as this intensely humiliating, dehumanizing environment. Just awful to contemplate.
And court documents apparently suggest this wasn't like a one-time thing. It was part of a pattern.
A pattern of behavior, yeah. Allegedly taking place during these freak-offs.
There was one specific incident she described, just particularly harrowing.
One involving the male escort urinating into her mouth. Again, allegedly under Combs' direction.
God, you can't imagine. She described physically choking from the volume and being completely unable to stop it.
It speaks to just such a complete lack of control, a total disregard for her.
She explained her position, too, on the floor, making it physically hard, maybe impossible to get away.
Right, and she even mentioned raising her hands, a clear signal, pleading for them to stop.
Ignored.
Allegedly ignored it. Because Combs had supposedly told the escort to keep going. It really highlights the alleged power dynamics. The coercion.
It's a horrific picture. Absolute powerlessness, and reports mention this, like heavy silence in the courtroom when she said this.
You can imagine. Underscores the sheer gravity of her words. The weight of these allegations.
Yeah.
It wasn't just recounting facts. It felt like conveying deep trauma.
And what seems really significant here is that her testimony, it doesn't sound like isolated incidents. It points towards something bigger, right? A broader pattern.
Exactly. An alleged pattern of control and abuse. Legal analysts watching this, they're saying her firsthand account is critical. It gives this direct personal insight into the dynamics of that relationship.
Which is often key in these kinds of cases. Coercive behavior allegations.
Precisely. So it seems likely the prosecution will use this. Try to build a case that these freak-offs, they weren't random. They were part of a system, almost. Manipulation, dominance.
That seems like a probable strategy to show a larger pattern.
And just for clarity for everyone listening, this term freak-offs, in this context, it seems to mean these orchestrated sexual encounters. Multiple people.
Allegedly designed purely for Combs' desires.
Right. While completely disregarding consent, well-being, especially Cassie's, the non-consensual aspect is absolutely central and deeply disturbing.
Now, we have to state, Combs' legal team denies all of this vehemently.
Yes, that's crucial.
They're arguing any encounters were consensual. They've suggested Cassie might have other motives for her testimony.
Right. We're not going to speculate on their exact defense strategy, but you can bet they'll challenge her account. Try to offer a different narrative.
And we'll definitely follow how they respond as the trial goes on.
But whatever the defense says, Cassie's testimony, it's already sent huge shockwaves.
Oh, absolutely.
It's raising really serious, important questions about power dynamics in entertainment, how fame, wealth, how that can sometimes shield alleged misconduct, make accountability really difficult.
It forces you to confront some uncomfortable truths about those power structures.
Yeah. And you just think about how incredibly hard it must be testifying about things like this.
Yeah.
So traumatic. In a public courtroom.
Reports said she kept her composure, which is remarkable strength.
It really is. But it also highlights the emotional toll. Reliving that stuff. Her ability to even articulate it under that pressure. It's significant.
And her descriptions. Feeling humiliated, trapped, overwhelmed. Sadly, it echoes what you hear from other survivors of abuse, especially in high-profile cases.
Where there's that big power imbalance.
Exactly. Her testimony just underscores the immense courage it takes to confront someone powerful. In an industry where, let's be honest, influence can silence people, speaking out carries huge risks.
Enormous risks. Personal, professional.
So, with all that,
Yeah.
What happens next? What can we expect in the trial?
Well, we can probably expect more witnesses. The prosecution will likely call people who might corroborate parts of Cassie's story.
Support that narrative of a pattern.
Or conversely, maybe witnesses who challenge her version will likely see this sort of battle of narratives built through testimony.
And the strategies,
Yeah.
prosecution trying to establish that pattern using her testimony as a cornerstone.
Seems likely, yeah. Looking for consistency, other corroborating details.
While the defense will probably focus on undermining her credibility or reframing the events.
That would be standard, yes. Suggesting consent, questioning motives, but, at the end of the day, whatever the trial's outcome, Cassie's words have already had a huge impact.
No doubt.
Not just on this specific case, but on the whole public conversation about accountability, how people are treated in the music industry. Her testimony has really amplified all of that.
So to wrap up this part of our deep dive, it's just undeniable. Cassie Ventura's testimony included incredibly serious, deeply disturbing details about these alleged freak-offs.
The specifics she shared paint a really harrowing picture about power, about control, about what she says she experienced.
And again, our focus today was just presenting the facts and details as reported based on that Justice Uncovered excerpt, trying to unpack her testimony and its immediate implications in the trial.
Right, just laying out what's been alleged in court.
So as you, the listener, process all this, maybe think about those complex, often hidden power dynamics, especially in industries like entertainment.
Yeah, and think about the courage it takes for someone to come forward with allegations like these against powerful people, the obstacles they face.
What does it really take, for genuine accountability in contexts like these, where fame and influence are such big factors? It's a tough question.
It really is. This case is obviously still unfolding. We'll keep following it closely.
Definitely. And we encourage you to stay informed through reliable news sources as well.
And one last thing. If any of this discussion has been difficult or triggering for you, please remember there are resources available to help. You're not alone.